Don't move. Don't even think about it.
I'm not moving. This is my house.
Funny how it's always your type hanging around places like this before something gets robbed.
My type?
Yeah, acting like you belong.
I do belong. I live here.
Stop your hands!
Cam footage begins with flashing red and blue lights, reflecting off polished stone pillars. A large modern home stands behind a black iron gate. 2 stories. Wide balcony. Custom glass windows. The kind of house that makes people slow down when they drive past. It's early evening. Sun almost set. Golden light spills across the driveway. And standing outside the house is a black man in his late 30s. Calm. Well-dressed. Fitted dark jeans. Crisp white shirt. Sleeves rolled just below the elbow. Phone in one hand. Key fob in the other. He presses the unlock button. The gate hums open. Before he can step forward, the cruiser door slams. Boots hit pavement. The body cam shakes with each step as the officer moves up the driveway without hesitation. No greeting. No distance. Hey! The man turns slowly. Yes? What are you doing here? The officer demands. The question isn't curious. It's accusatory. The man blinks once. I'm going inside. That's not what I asked. The officer steps closer, hand resting near his belt. I said, what are you doing on this property? The man gestures toward the open gate. I live here. The officer's eyes travel slowly from the man's shoes, up his legs, across his chest, then past him to the house. Long pause. You live here, the officer repeats flatly. Yes. In this house? Yes. Another pause. Suspicion hardens his face. We had reports of someone trying doors in this neighborhood. The man's expression doesn't change. And that led you to me? You match what was described. What description? Male hanging around houses, acting like he didn't belong. I unlocked my front gate. Or you were testing it? The man exhales slowly. You walked up here assuming I'm a thief. I walked up here because you look like someone who doesn't belong in a place like this. There it is. Clear? Direct. Before we go any further, comment where you're watching from. Let's see how far this documentary travels. The man's jaw tightens. Explain that. The officer gestures toward the house. Neighborhood like this doesn't usually have your kind just standing around. Your kind? You heard me. The air shifts. The man straightens slightly. Are you saying I don't look like I can afford this house? I'm saying I've seen this before. Seen what? People casing homes. I unlocked my own gate. Keys don't prove ownership. They prove access. Thieves get access. The officer steps even closer now. Invading space. You people always get defensive when asked simple questions. I'm being accused in my own driveway. You fit the pattern. What pattern? The officer tilts his head. Nice neighborhood, expensive property, someone like you hanging around acting nervous. I'm not nervous. You look it. I look confused. The officer's tone sharpens. Turn around. For what reason? Officer safety. I'm not threatening you. Don't tell me what is or isn't a threat. The man slowly raises his hands slightly away from his body. They're visible. Higher. He raises them to shoulder height. The officer's hand shifts to the yellow grip at his belt. The taser. Still holstered. But ready. You Africans always think if you dress nice it changes things, the officer mutters. The words land heavy. The man's eyes narrow. Repeat that. You heard what I said. You're profiling me. I'm investigating. Based on what? My skin? Based on behavior. What behavior? Lurking. I was unlocking my door. Allegedly. The man lets out a short, controlled breath. This is my address. Prove it. I don't carry my mortgage documents in my pocket. Smart mouth won't help you. I'm answering your questions. You're questioning authority. I'm questioning your assumption. The officer unclips the taser. Now it's in his hand. Not fired, but aimed. Directly at the man's chest. The body cam captures the yellow casing rising into frame. You're escalating this, the man says calmly. You're resisting. I haven't moved. You're refusing commands. I'm asking why. You think you can just walk up to houses like this and not get checked? I built this house. The officer scoffs. Sure you did. Silence. Heavy. The red and blue lights continue to wash over the stone walls. You don't look like someone who built anything here, the officer says. And what does that look like? The officer doesn't answer directly. He doesn't need to. The implication is clear. Turn around, the officer orders again. For what lawful reason? For the last time, turn around. The taser raises slightly higher. The distance between them shrinks. The man glances briefly toward the front door, then back at the officer. This is my home. Last warning. For what? For making this difficult. The man slowly lowers one hand toward his pocket. I can show you. Don't move. The officer steps forward aggressively. The taser now fully aimed. Finger tense. The atmosphere snaps tight. Because this is no longer a misunderstanding. It's judgment. And the officer has already decided who this man is. A thief. A suspect. Someone who doesn't belong. Standing in front of his own house. And the next move is about to change everything. The officer's finger tightens. The red laser dot trembles against the man's chest. Drop your hand, the officer snaps. It's empty, the man says. I said drop it. The man freezes. Slowly raises both hands again. Palms open, facing forward. I'm not reaching for anything. You moved. I told you I could show you. Show me what? A stolen key? The accusation lands sharp. This is mine, the man says. Yeah, that's what your type always says? My type? Don't play dumb. The officer steps closer. Close enough that the taser almost brushes fabric. You think I haven't seen this before? He continues. Nice clothes, confident tone, acting like you own something you don't. I do own it. You don't look like you own it. And what does ownership look like? The officer doesn't answer directly. Instead, you were reported. By who? Neighbor? Which one? You don't get to question me. I have the right to know who accused me. You have the right to comply. I am complying. You're arguing. I'm explaining. You people always twist it like that. Silence. Heavy. The taser stays locked on his chest. The patrol car engine hums behind them. The sky darkens slightly. You fit the description, the officer says again. That description was someone who didn't belong. And here you are. So I don't belong in my own driveway? The officer tilts his head. You know what I see? What? I see someone trying real hard to sound like he belongs here. I built this place. Sure you did. The officer gestures toward the house. Places like this aren't easy to get. I know. You don't just wake up and land in a neighborhood like this. I didn't. So how'd you get it? The question is neutral. It's loaded. Years of work, the man replies calmly. The officer smirks. Doing what? Technology. Uh-huh. You don't believe that either? The officer shrugs slightly. I've seen scammers make good money too. The word hangs in the air. Scammer. You're reaching, the man says. You're standing in front of a house you don't look like you belong in. That's your opinion. It's experience. The officer steps even closer. Turn around. I'm not turning around without cause. There's cause. What is it? You're refusing commands. I haven't refused anything. I told you to turn around. And I asked why. That's refusal. The officer's jaw tightens. Last warning. For what exactly? For resisting. The man exhales slowly. You want to tase me for standing in my driveway? You want to keep pushing it? I'm asking you to do your job properly. The officer's voice drops lower. Colder. You people always think you know the law. I know my rights. You think that makes you untouchable? No. but it means you need a reason. You're the reason. The man blinks. What does that mean? You showing up here like this? Like what? Like you own it. I do. You're acting bold. I'm calm. You're defiant. I'm not. The taser inches closer. The red dot steadies. The officer's breathing grows heavier. You know what's funny? The officer says. What? Every time there's a break-in call in this area, it's somebody who just lives here. And how many of those turned out to be homeowners? The officer ignores that. You people always think you can just blend in. Blend in? Move into neighborhoods and expect no one to notice. The implication cuts deep. I bought this house legally. We'll see about that. See about what? Tax records, ownership records. You'd be surprised how often things don't add up. The officer circles slightly to the side, still aiming. You think I don't see it? See what? Someone trying to play a part. The man's composure tightens. This is dangerous. What is? You pointing that at me. You're making me nervous. I haven't moved. You're tense. You aimed a weapon at me, the officer scoffs. It's less lethal. It's still a weapon. Only if you make it one. Silence. The officer glances at the house again, then back at the man. Where's the garage opener? In my pocket. Slowly. You told me not to move. Now I'm telling you to move. The contradiction hangs heavy. You see the problem? The man asks quietly. You're the problem. The officer suddenly raises his voice. Turn around. I'm not resisting. The officer steps forward abruptly. The taser jolts slightly upward. Get on your knees. For what? For not complying. I'm standing still. You're arguing. That's not illegal. It is when I say stop. The red and blue lights flash violently across both faces. The neighborhood remains quiet. No neighbors outside. Just two men in a driveway. One with his hands raised. The other with a taser aimed. The officer leans in closer. You don't get to act comfortable here. This is my home. Not tonight. The phrase lands hard. Not tonight? Tonight you're a suspect. Based on what? Based on what I see. And what you see is what? The officer doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. His posture answers. His tone answers. His assumption answers. The taser hums faintly. The distance between them shrinks again. You keep pushing, the officer says quietly. You keep assuming, the man replies. The officer's finger tightens further. Last chance. For what? To stop acting like this is yours. The man stares directly at him. It is. The silence that follows is thick and unstable, because pressure is no longer building. It's peaking. And the next move won't just escalate this driveway confrontation, it will expose everything. The officer's finger tightens. The taser clicks. A sharp mechanical pop splits the air. The man's body jerks violently. Electric current locks his muscles mid-breath. He collapses hard onto the polished stone driveway. Phone skids across the ground. Key fob lands near the gate. The red laser dot disappears as the officer steps forward. Stop resisting, the officer shouts. The man isn't resisting. He's convulsing. Unable to move. Unable to speak. The body cam tilts downward as the officer advances. Boots step closer. Hands behind your back. The man tries to breathe through the shock. He can't. Stop playing. The officer kneels partially, one hand pressing down between the man's shoulders. You people always act dramatic when you get caught. I live here, the man gasps. Save it. Metal cuffs click. Cold steel tight around wrists still trembling from the electricity. The taser wires remain connected. The officer steps back, breathing heavy, chest rising and falling fast. He keys his radio. Suspect detained, attempted burglary. Non-compliant, taser deployed. The words travel through dispatch. Official, confident, framed as fact. But then, a sound interrupts. Not from the street. Not from the radio. From above. A balcony door slides open. The body cam tilts up. A woman steps out onto the wide second-floor balcony. Late 30s. Calm. Composed. Holding a phone. She looks down at the scene. What is going on? The officer glances up briefly. Ma'am, stay inside. That is my husband, she replies evenly. Silence. The officer looks from her to the man on the ground, back to the house. He was attempting entry, the officer says loudly. He used the gate remote, she answers. He claims ownership. He is the owner. The words don't come emotional. They come factual, clear. The officer straightens slightly. Can you verify that? She lifts something in her hand. The body cam zoom effect shifts slightly as it adjusts focus. A remote panel beside the balcony door beeps. The driveway lights brighten automatically. Then, the front door unlocks with a soft mechanical click. From inside. Should I come down with the paperwork? She asks calmly. The officer's posture shifts. Just slightly. Paperwork? Property deed, title, HOA registration, tax statements. The words stack like bricks. Solid. Unshakable. The man on the ground coughs, trying to regain breath. I told you, he manages weakly. The officer looks down at him, then back up at the woman. What's his name? The officer asks. She answers without hesitation. Daniel Okoye. The officer glances at the ID clipped partially from the man's pocket where it fell during the fall. The name matches. The address matches. Dispatch crackles in his ear. Unit 12. Property records confirm ownership. Daniel Okoye listed as primary deed holder. Silence. Not subtle silence. Heavy silence. The red and blue lights continue flashing across the pillars. But the energy has changed. Completely. The officer slowly lowers his hand from the taser grip. Looks at the cuffs. Then at the house again. The house doesn't look suspicious anymore. It looks lived in. Lights on. Furniture visible through the glass. Family photos lining the hallway wall. Real. Owned. The man on the ground tries to push himself slightly up. I told you this was my home. The officer doesn't answer immediately. Because now the body cam isn't capturing suspicion. It's capturing error. And assumption. And escalation without cause. You deployed a taser on the homeowner? Dispatch asks through static. The officer doesn't respond right away. The woman steps out onto the balcony rail slightly. I am recording, she says evenly. So are the exterior cameras. She gestures toward the corners of the house, small black security lenses pointed directly at the driveway. Every angle, she adds. The officer finally reaches down, unhooks the taser wires. They snap loose from the man's shirt. He flinches. You didn't comply, the officer mutters weakly. I stood still, Daniel replies. You argued. That's not a crime. Silence again. Because now the real issue is visible. It was never about burglary. It was never about a neighbor. It was never about suspicious behavior. It was about assumption. About deciding who belongs before confirming who owns. The officer slowly uncuffs him. Metal clicks open. The sound feels louder this time. He steps back. No longer towering. No longer commanding. Just standing. Exposed. The woman speaks again from above. You told him he didn't look like he belonged here. The officer says nothing. You called him a suspect before checking records. No response. You tased him in his own driveway. The weight of that sentence hangs in the air. The power has shifted. Completely. Daniel pushes himself up slowly. Still shaking. But upright. You saw what you wanted to see, he says quietly. The officer avoids eye contact now. Because the body cam is still recording. And this footage won't just live in a department archive. It will be reviewed. By supervisors. By internal affairs. By attorneys. By people who understand what your kind means in a driveway like this. The flashing lights suddenly feel different. Not authoritative, not protective, but incriminating. And the truth stands taller than the badge now, because the homeowner is no longer on the ground. And the officer is no longer in control. If you're enjoying this documentary so far, like and subscribe. Because what happens next isn't just embarrassment, and it's consequences that follow him back to his badge. The body cam keeps rolling. No one says anything for several long seconds. Just the hum of the cruiser. The faint crackle of dispatch. Daniel steadies himself against the stone pillar, one hand pressed to his ribs where the probes hit. His shirt is torn slightly, burn marks visible against fabric. His wife stands beside him now, calm, but unshaken. The supervisor walks back into frame, looks at Daniel, then at the officer. "Remove the cuffs," he says quietly. They're already off. That makes it worse, because it means the mistake is fully acknowledged. Right there in the driveway. The supervisor turns to Daniel. "Sir, EMS is on the way." "I'll document everything," Daniel replies evenly. The officer shifts his weight, still breathing heavier than he should be, still trying to hold on to something that's already gone. Authority, control, narrative, but it's slipping. Fast. The supervisor looks at him again. "Step aside." The officer steps back, farther than before, because now this isn't about compliance. It's about damage. That night, the body cam uploads automatically. Time-stamped. Audio clear. No gaps. Internal Affairs flags it within hours because a taser was deployed. Policy requires review. But this review isn't routine. It's immediate. Supervisors pull the footage. Pause it. Rewind it. Transcribe it. You're kind. You don't look like you belong. Blend in. Not tonight. Each phrase sits heavier when written down. The timeline is clear. Taser deployed before confirmation. Property ownership verified after force. No weapon observed. No attempt to flee. No physical threat. The next morning, Daniel's attorney files formal notice of intent to sue. Excessive force. Unlawful detention. Civil rights violations. Racial discrimination. By noon, local media requests comment. By evening, the clip of the taser firing circulates online. The driveway. The collapse. The words before it. The department places the officer on immediate administrative leave. Badge surrendered. Taser logged. Patrol access suspended. 2 weeks later, the officer is officially charged internally with policy violations. Use of force without proper verification. Failure to de-escalate. Conduct unbecoming. Biased language while on duty. The lawsuit moves quickly, because the evidence isn't disputed. In deposition, the officer is asked, "Did you confirm that Mr. Okoye did not live at the property before deploying your taser?" "No." "Did he physically threaten you?" "No." "Did he attempt to enter unlawfully?" "No." "Why did you fire?" He pauses, and that pause becomes expensive. 6 months later, the city settles. Publicly. $1.2 million settlement. $1.2 million awarded to Daniel Okoye. 7 figures. The settlement includes full medical reimbursement, compensation for physical injury and emotional distress, attorney fees covered, mandatory departmental policy reform, public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The officer's termination follows shortly after. Not resignation. Termination. His state certification is reviewed. Suspended pending investigation. Placed on a misconduct registry. Future employment in law enforcement unlikely. The department announces new guidelines. Verification of property ownership required before escalation on private property. Supervisor approval for taser deployment in nonviolent encounters. Expanded bias training. Body cam audit oversight increased. Because the city learned something. The hard way. Daniel finishes physical therapy 3 months later. The burns fade. The muscle spasms stop. But the footage remains. Archived. Referenced. Discussed in policy meetings. Used in training rooms. The house still stands tall behind the black iron gate. 2 stories. Wide balcony. Custom glass windows. Golden light still spills across the driveway at sunset. Daniel still unlocks his gate each evening, still stands where he stood that night. But now when neighbors drive past, they don't slow down out of suspicion. They slow down out of awareness. Because everyone saw what assumption did. Everyone saw what escalation without verification cost. A career ended. A $1.2 million settlement paid. A department forced to change its rules. And a man proved right in the simplest way possible. He belonged there. He always had. Life moves on. But policy doesn't forget. And neither does documentation. The end.